Yo, what's going on, Push Peeps? We have a very important topic for you. One that I believe very strongly you could see in a short answer question format or even an essay. This is about the growth of African slavery in colonial America and its consequences. And this will cover many periods in the Push curriculum. All right, so periods 1 through 3, these periods focus on the growth of slavery in colonial America, particularly in the 18th century, both before, during, and after American independence. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this is a great potential short answer question or essay topic. If I were an AP test writer, which I'm not, I would choose this. So some big idea questions you should be able to answer. Why did indentured servitude decline in the colonies, especially in the Chesapeake? And you remember what the Chesapeake is, right? What two colonies? Yeah, look at you little genius. You know it's Maryland and Virginia. And why did that give rise to African slavery? What impact did the growth of slavery have on America? And how did African slaves resist and or challenge their situation? All very important questions you should be able to describe in detail when we're done with this. All right, so if you open up the curriculum, it'll state reasons for the growth of slavery. And there are going to be 3 of them. So this sounds to me like it could be a short answer question, ask you to determine which one was the most important. One reason we have is a high European demand for American cash crops. Colonial America, tell me what that cash crop is from the Chesapeake. That's right, it's tobacco. If you're in South Carolina, it's going to be something like rice or sugar. So there is this unbelievably high demand for these crops in Europe. So that will lead to a need for a large labor force, which unfortunately will lead to African slavery. There's also going to be difficulty in enslaving natives because they were susceptible to disease, they knew the land well, and could run away. And there's also a lack of indentured servants, especially after 1676 with Bacon's Rebellion. So be able to identify and explain all 3 of these. So let's talk about this high European demand for cash crops. Well, British colonies focused on the growing of cash crops. That's what a lot of the economy was based on in early colonial America. As I mentioned, you have tobacco, sugar, and rice. Tobacco in particular in the Chesapeake. Wealthy plantation owners, they wanted to expand their land holdings. The more land they had, the more cash crops they could grow, the more cash they could make. And this is this cycle that would keep perpetuating itself over and over. Now, cultivating these crops was incredibly difficult work, very arduous, and required extensive labor. So if you were in Maryland and Virginia, for example, again, the Chesapeake, they grew tobacco, South Carolina grew rice, and the West Indies would grow sugar, and this would be exported all over the world. Think about the triangular trade, this idea of trading with many different parts of the world. Jump on over to Native Americans and slavery. Now, as a whole, they were not enslaved in large numbers, and that's because of high death rates due to diseases such as malaria or smallpox. And again, as I mentioned, they were familiar with the land, so they could run away easily. And although the encomienda system existed, and that was really in the Spanish colonies, it was outlawed in the mid-16th century, and that was replaced with labor from African slaves. Now let's talk about the decline of indentured servants. A large number of immigrants to the English colonies, especially the Chesapeake, they came over as indentured servants. They would serve about 4 to 5 years. They would sign a contract, and the plantation owner would pay for them to come over, and in return, they would work for about 4 to 5 years. Now the headright system, that's essentially encouraging indentured servants to come over by giving plantation owners 50 acres of land in addition to having an indentured servant come over. Now that gave these plantation owners more land, which could then be used to grow more crops, which could then be used to get more money, to buy more land, to get more labor, to grow more crops, and again and again and again, it's this cycle. Now in 1676, this is a turning point in colonial American labor history. There's Bacon's Rebellion. This is a rebellion in Jamestown, Virginia, led by Nathaniel Bacon. He got a bunch of landless whites in the west of Jamestown that were kind of outside the scope of the city of Jamestown. And they were upset with the governor of Virginia, Governor Berkeley, so they rebelled. They wanted protection from natives that Governor Berkeley was not willing to give. Nathaniel Bacon and his followers, they burn Jamestown to the ground. Berkeley has to flee. Eventually, Berkeley gets sick and dies, and the rebellion is crushed. Now, it's very important to know if you're writing an essay about slavery, here is the detail you need to include. As a result of this, plantation owners in Jamestown, really the Chesapeake, and began to switch from indentured servants, and they moved towards slavery because indentured servants eventually got their freedom and they would become restless without land. So they moved to a more permanent forced labor source of slavery. If you're writing an essay about slavery, that's a very important topic to explain the growth of slavery in colonial America.